Welcome to Cheater Fallout. Let us get started with today's story. 3 weeks before our wedding, my fiancée sat me down at the kitchen table and asked if she could spend a weekend alone with her ex. She called it closure. I smiled, told her I understood, and said yes. What she didn't know was that the moment those words left her mouth, the wedding was already over, and I had already started building the ending she never saw coming. Her name was Elena. She'd rehearsed the speech, I could tell. She had that soft, careful voice people use when they've already decided something, but still want you to hand them permission. "Marcus," she said, folding her hands, "before we get married, I think I need one last trip with Adrian, just to close that chapter." For closure. I set down my fork. I didn't blink. Closure. The words sat in the air like smoke. "Where would you go?" I asked, keeping my voice flat and kind at the same time. "Just the lake house up in Ridgemont. 2 nights. We used to go there. I need to say a real goodbye so I can start our marriage clean." 2 nights. A lake house. A goodbye that required a bed. I nodded slowly, like a man who trusted his wife to be completely. "If that's what you need," I said, "then go." Her whole body relaxed. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I knew you'd get it. You're the most understanding man I've ever met." I smiled back at her, and inside, something cold and clear clicked into place. Because here's what Elena didn't know. 3 days earlier, I'd found a receipt in her coat pocket. A jewelry receipt. A men's watch, engraved. I read the engraving twice, to A. Until the end. The engraving wasn't for me. My name doesn't start with an A. So when she asked for closure, I already knew this trip wasn't a goodbye. It was a beginning. She was hiding behind a pretty word. I'd spent that whole week telling myself I was imagining things. The late nights at the office. The phone that flipped face down whenever I walked into a room. The new laugh she saved for someone who wasn't there. A man tells himself a lot of stories to avoid the one that's true, but you can't argue with an engraving. So I decided, right there at that table, that I wasn't going to fight for her. And I wasn't going to scream. And I wasn't going to beg. I was going to let her go exactly where she wanted to go, and make sure she never came back to the life she was about to throw away. If she wanted closure, I'd give her the most complete closure of her life. The next morning, she left for work humming. Actually humming. I made coffee, sat down with a notepad, and I didn't write angry things. I wrote a plan. Step 1 was money. We had a joint account for the wedding, and most of what was in it was mine. My savings. My deposits, my name on the lease of the house we lived in. I transferred my contributions into a private account that afternoon and left the joint balance sitting at almost nothing, with a polite little note in the memo line. Adjustment pending. Harmless. Invisible until it wasn't. Step 2 was the wedding itself. The venue, the caterer, the florist. All booked. All on deposits I had paid. I called each of them and calmly asked to place our booking on a temporary hold under a corporate name, in case of a date change. Every vendor thanked me for being so organized. Every deposit stayed protected, and every trace of Elena's name quietly came off the paperwork. Step 3 was legal. I called a lawyer named Priya, who'd handled the closing on my house 2 years earlier. "Marcus, what's going on?" she asked. "I need to know how fast I can remove someone from a property they don't legally own," I said. She didn't ask why. "Is she on the deed?" "No." "Then it's simple. 30-day notice. I'll draft it tonight." By the time Elena came home that evening, glowing, chatting about her day, I had already dismantled the future she thought was waiting for her. I listened to her talk. I laughed in the right places, and when she kissed my cheek and said she couldn't wait to marry me, I said, "Neither can I." That was the first lie I ever told her. It felt like nothing. But I wasn't done, because knowing wasn't enough. I needed proof. The kind nobody could argue with, the kind that couldn't be softened into a mistake. So the next day I met a man named Cole at a diner off the highway. Cole was a private investigator, mid-50s, quiet. The kind of man who never raised his voice because he never needed to. "You want to know if she's cheating?" he said. "I already know she's cheating," I said. "I want it documented. Times, photos, receipts. And I want to know everything about the man she's going with." Cole wrote in a small notebook. "You'll have it. Elena spent that whole week packing like a girl going on vacation, new outfits, a new perfume. She kept telling me how much this trip would help our relationship. How lucky she was to have a man secure enough to allow it. Every word she said dug the hole a little deeper, and she had no idea she was holding the shovel. On Friday morning, she left at dawn, kissed my forehead, whispered "I love you," and drove off toward Ridgemont. I stood at the window with my coffee and texted Cole one line: "She's moving." Then I waited. The house was silent in a way I'd never noticed before. Not empty. Cleared. Like a stage before the lights come up. Friday night, my phone buzzed at 9. Photos loaded one by one. Elena and Adrian on the lake house dock at sunset, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. Elena and Adrian at a candlelit restaurant, her hand inside his. And then the two of them walking into the lake house together. One bag, one door, no goodbye anywhere in the frame. But that wasn't the part that changed everything. Cole called me an hour later. "Marcus, you need to hear this before you do anything. Go ahead. The man she's with, Adrian Vance. He's not single." I sat up. "He's married," Cole said. "Wife's name is Rachel. They have a 2-year-old daughter. And here's the thing. He told Rachel he's away this weekend at a work conference." I stared at the wall for a long moment. Elena thought she was running toward a fresh start with the love of her life. But the love of her life had a wife, rocking their daughter to sleep, believing her husband was at a hotel taking notes in a conference room. 2 women were being lied to that weekend. Elena just didn't know she was one of them. And in that second, my plan changed shape. I wasn't only going to expose Elena. I was going to give Rachel back the truth someone had stolen from her. "Cole," I said, "get me everything with both their names on it. A hotel folio, a receipt, anything. And find me a way to reach Rachel Vance." Saturday brought more photos. The two of them on a boat, the two of them laughing over breakfast, and a copy of the lake house folio. 2 guests, 1 room, both names printed in black and white. Meanwhile, Elena texted me that night. "Hey, love. Talking to Adrian has been so healing. I feel lighter already. Can't wait to marry you." I read it 3 times. The woman sending me hearts was lying in another man's bed. I typed back, "I'm so glad you're getting the closure you needed. Drive safe." Every word true. Every word a blade. On Sunday morning, before Elena even packed to come home, I made one phone call I'll never forget. Rachel Vance answered on the second ring, cheerful, a toddler babbling in the background. I told her who I was. I told her, gently, that my fiancé had gone away for the weekend with a man named Adrian, and that I had reason to believe it wasn't a work conference. There was a long silence. Then, very quietly, she said, "Send me everything." I did. And Rachel, it turned out, was not the kind of woman who cried and did nothing. Elena's car pulled into the driveway at 6 that evening. I watched her step out, stretch, smile at the sky like a woman who'd just wiped her past clean. She walked in glowing. "Marcus," she said, dropping her bag, "that was exactly what I needed. I feel ready now. Ready for us." "I'm glad," I said. "Sit down. I have something for you." On the coffee table was a plain brown envelope. She sat, still smiling, and opened it. The dock photo first. Her smile flickered. The restaurant photo next. Her hand went to her mouth. The photo of them walking into the lake house together, and the folio, 1 room, both names. The color drained from her face like water from a sink. "Marcus, this isn't what it looks like. We just talked. Nothing happened." "1 bed," I said quietly. 1 room. 2 nights. Don't insult both of us." She started to cry. "It was a mistake. I was confused. I needed to be sure about you. About us." "You were sure," I said. "You just chose wrong." I slid a second envelope across the table. "That's a 30-day notice to vacate. Your things are already boxed in the spare room. The wedding is off. The accounts are settled. And Elena, there's one more thing you should know." She looked up, mascara running. "Adrian's wife knows too," I said. "Her name is Rachel. They have a daughter. She got the same photos you're holding this afternoon." Elena's face went from grief to horror. "He's married?" she whispered, and I realized, in that moment, she truly hadn't known. He'd lied to her, exactly the way she'd lied to me. The whole thing collapsed on her at once. "You knew," she said. You knew the whole time and you let me go. You asked for closure? I said, standing up. I made sure you got it. She begged then. Really begged. Said she loved me. Said we could fix it. Said she'd made one stupid mistake. I walked to the door and opened it. You made your choice at that kitchen table, I said. I'm just honoring it. She picked up her bag and left, and the house went quiet again, but it was a different quiet now. A clean one. The days after were loud. Her calls, her texts. Her mother phoning to tell me I was cruel for humiliating her daughter. I told her mother the truth calmly and hung up. Her father called to threaten me, and I told him I'd be happy to show him the folio. He never called back. And then, on Wednesday, Elena came to me in person. She was waiting outside my office when I left, pale, thinner already. None of the confidence she'd had at that kitchen table. Marcus, please, she said. You don't have to destroy me. Just come to the engagement dinner Saturday. My parents already paid for everything. The whole family is coming. If you don't show, everyone will know and it will kill me. Please, just show up. We'll figure the rest out quietly. I looked at her for a long moment, and I said, yes, I'll be there, I told her. Her eyes lit up with a hope she hadn't earned. You will? Yes, I said. I think it's time everyone heard the truth in the same room. She didn't understand what I meant. She thought I was folding. She hugged me, and I let her. And over her shoulder, I was already dialing a number in my head. Because there was one guest that dinner was missing. That night, I called Rachel Vance a second time. I told her about the dinner. I told her she was welcome to come, and that if she wanted her husband's family and her own dignity restored in front of witnesses, this was the room to do it in. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, What time? Saturday evening, the private room at the restaurant glowed with candles and flowers Elena's parents had paid a fortune for. Elena worked the crowd in a pale blue dress, laughing too loudly, telling everyone how understanding I was, how strong our love had become. Her mother raised a glass first. To second chances, she said, smiling at her daughter. And to a love that forgives. Polite applause. Every eye drifted to me, waiting for the groom to speak, so I stood up. I lifted my glass slowly, and the room went quiet. Thank you all for coming, I said. 3 weeks before our wedding, Elena asked me for one last trip with her ex. She called it closure. She promised nothing would happen. I paused. It wasn't closure, and plenty happened. The smiles froze on every face. Elena went white. Marcus, stop, she whispered. I set my glass down and looked toward the door. I think our last guest has something to add. And that's when Rachel Vance walked in. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She walked to the center of that room in a quiet gray coat, set a folder of photographs on the table, and said, in a voice that carried to every corner, My name is Rachel. Adrian is my husband. We have a 2-year-old daughter. Last weekend, he told me he was at a conference. She looked directly at Elena. He was with her. The room erupted. Elena's mother dropped her glass. Her father stared at the folder like it was on fire. Elena covered her face and sank into her chair. And the two families who'd gathered to celebrate a wedding sat frozen in the wreckage of 2 of them. I buttoned my jacket. Enjoy the evening, I said. And I walked out into the cool night air. And for the first time in weeks, I breathed all the way down to the bottom of my lungs. But the real reckoning was still waiting on the other side of town. Rachel Vance did not beg, and she did not cry on the phone. She waited until Adrian walked through his own front door on Sunday night, still smelling of the lake, still rehearsing his conference lies, and she met him with a suitcase already packed, his, and every photograph laid out across the kitchen table like a hand of cards. He had no story that could survive it. By the end of that week, Adrian had moved out of his own home. His marriage was finished before ours ever got the chance to begin. 2 liars had booked a weekend to start a secret life together, and instead, they detonated both of the real lives they'd been hiding it behind. As for Elena, the small town did what small towns do. Word traveled. The wedding that never happened became the story everyone whispered about. She quit her job after the whispers followed her into the break room. She moved into a rented apartment near her parents and, from what I heard, stopped going out much at all. The woman who once lectured me about needing space to grow spent her evenings behind drawn blinds. Months later, I saw her once at a grocery store, thinner, older somehow, a basket with a few sad items in her hand. Our eyes met. She started to say something. I gave her a small nod. the kind you give a stranger, and I kept walking. There was nothing left to say. And me, I kept the house. I kept my savings. I kept my name off of every mistake she made. 3 weeks before our wedding, my fiancée asked me for one last trip with Fiancée, and she called it closure. In the end, she got her closure. It just didn't look anything like the one she'd packed her bags for. She wanted a goodbye. I gave her a real one. Thank you for watching until the very end. Wishing you happiness, peace, and a wonderful day ahead.